Hi, I'm Luke and welcome back to Lyons Whisky Reviews. Thank you for joining me. Today I'll be doing something a little different. I'll be having a look at some of the whiskies that Aldi currently has on offer. What makes Aldi Whisky unique is the fact that they keep the distilleries used close to their chest. For their Scottish whiskies, they use the brand name Glen Marnoch as an overarching term. Here we have the Glen Marnoch 12-year-old and 18-year-old respectively. Now, in the case of these, all we can gather from them is the fact that they're a single malt Scotch whisky from the Speyside region, bottled at 40%. In the case of the 12-year-old, it costs £20 and the 18-year-old £40. But what we have here is a Kyasuku Japanese whiskey. Now, a recent trend in supermarkets, given the boom in Japanese whiskey over the last 5 years, has been to make their own Japanese whiskey. But instead of actually sourcing a proper Japanese whiskey, they go for these world whiskey blends. So now what does world whiskey mean? So in the case of a world whiskey blend, it means that it's taking whiskies from all around the world. In this case, it could be any number of countries, maybe Scotland, America, India, and they blend those whiskies together in Japan, and then it's been aged there for some period of time. In the case of the Kyasuku, they also claim that Mizunara casks have been used. Once that is then finished, they bottle it, they put it in a bottle like this where it has a Japanese calligraphy, and it really makes people think, oh, I've seen those Japanese whiskies in other shops before, that must be one of those too, and people buy them for a premium price. In the case of this Kyasuku blended whiskey, it's £25 for what is likely exactly 3 years old to the day whiskey. But let's get on to how the Aldi whiskies actually taste, shall we? Now, let's get on to the Glen Marnoch 12-year-old. So, I'll pour a glass and go over it. So, to begin with, the Glen Marnoch 12-year-old is a Speyside single malt Scotch whisky that's bottled at 40%. It is likely that colouring has been used, although it doesn't state so, and that chill filtering is taking place given the 40%. So, let's get on to how the whisky itself actually smells. There's a strong scent of marmalade on toast with a slight musty quality and a orangey fruitiness kind of also rounding off the notes. Maybe a hint of vanilla coming through. Now, in terms of how it actually tastes, so the orange that you're getting on the nose really starts to come through on the palate itself. As this kind of like weak orange sort of flavour comes from the mouth with like a slight mustiness to it, and it's a hint of like pear drops maybe? Yeah. As far as the finish itself is concerned, it's rather short and weak. It almost leaves your mouth in a sensation of mouthwash. So you've got a hint of fruitiness, but your mouth almost tastes like you just had some mouthwash. Now, for only £20, you can't really go wrong. You're not getting some top grade, flavours or finish here, but for only £20 for a single malt Scotch whisky, it does signify good value for money, really. Now, onto the Glen Marnoch 18. In the case of the 18-year-old, we have a Speyside whisky that's been aged exclusively in American oak cask for 18 years. Like the 12-year-old, it has been bottled at 40%, and it is likely that chill filtration has been used. However, given it's an 18-year-old whisky, I would like to believe that the colour on display here is natural. Now, let's see what it smells like. What's it's a really nice complex smell, to be honest. There's like a hint of kiwi alongside this malty fruitiness. It's coupled with a bit of must and almost, you know, that oak coming through. And it makes for a rather, you know, quite a nice round smell, really. You know, it definitely smells nicer than the 12-year-old. But as far as it actually tastes, you're immediately hit with like this wall of oak, you know, the rich oak from this 18-year-old whiskey. It's been exclusively aged in American cask. It's met with this like, with this oily mouthfeel that the whiskey gives. There's also a little bit of dried fruit. And overall, I'd say the flavours that are on display here are rather rich, which is becoming of an 18-year-old whiskey like this. But where I do find the whiskey to be slightly disappointing is the matter of the finish. Now, on the finish, I am getting this kind of weak fruitiness and almost like a short pear sensation, but the problem I have with it is that for an 18-year-old whiskey, you know, there's a bit of, I mean, almost a dry sensation left in the mouth. But for a whiskey this old, I bet the finish to be slightly longer. But overall, it is a nice whiskey, and the finish is still pleasant. It's, you know, there is a bit of fruit, there is a little bit of the tannin staying through, but overall for an 18-year-old whiskey, you know, not the best. But it's only £40, and at £40, you know, you're going to be hard pressed to find an 18-year-old whiskey as cheap as this. However, I would argue that there are whiskies at this price point that I would also happily go for on a shelf. You know, bottles like a Talisker 10-year-old, or a Glenfarclas 12-year-old, a Glendronach 12-year-old, to be, you know, just as an example, are whiskies that I personally would prefer. However, the Glen Marnoch 18-year-old is very nice. Now, last and certainly least, we have the Kyasuku World Whisky. Now, where to begin with the Kyasuku? It's bottled at 40%, and it's absolutely a colouring chill filtration used. But let's get on to how it smells, shall we? I mean, it's absolutely dreadful. It smells of rotting apricots and peaches. Oh, I mean, there's this really strong acetone and nail polish removers coming through as well. It is utterly vile. There's also a hint of a men's urinal. It really does make for an utterly disgusting smell. Now, on to how the whiskey itself actually tastes, shall we? Oh, that is vile. Your mouth is met with this like this rotten fruit and this weak, like decaying smell taste, and it almost tastes not like a whiskey. It's hard to believe that what I'm drinking currently is a whiskey. It almost tastes like a cheap off botanical gin. You know, this smells and tastes like no other whiskey I've ever had before, and not in a good way. I'm only drinking this right now, so you don't have to, Please, for the love of God, do not buy this whiskey. Oh, and the finish, thank the Lord, is short. However, my mouth now just tastes of decaying fruits, and my mouth tastes disgusting. It's horrid, honestly. It's genuinely a horrible whiskey. It is probably the worst whiskey I've ever had in my life, and that goes with saying a lot. So please, whatever you do not buy Kyasuku. So overall, the Glen Marnoch 18-year-old remains my favourite I've tried today. But at only £20, the 12-year-old does offer exceedingly good value for money. While it may not be to my personal taste, I cannot deny that for someone with only a budget of £20, and who had never even tried a Speyside single malt whiskey, then why not go and buy the 12-year-old and experience what a Speyside whiskey is all about? But if I have not made it already abundantly clear, I repeat, do not buy the Kyasuku. Now, if you've tried any of these Aldi whiskies, or any of the other ones they've had on offer, please do let me know your thoughts on them in the comments down below. And please do stay tuned for more videos, as I'll be coming out with more fine whiskey reviews in the upcoming future. Thank you.